You learn maybe the value of a bit of experience. You don't cut anybody and don't give anybody a 10-year deal after day one, right? But good day though.
On that, it seemed like a lot of guys were prepared after last season, but at the same sense, still a lot of tired guys out there today. It was the goal kind of to repeat what you did last year during training camp?
And then take a little step. So I got to the right guys after. There are guys that will be able to tell you how hard something was, and a couple of the guys that pushed said they felt it was harder than last year. And I'm not saying that that's a goal, but we certainly do not want to take a step back in the camp that we had last year. So it was hard today, and we'll run a bunch of days consecutively. This will not be an easy camp. I think the difference would be that now they're mentally prepared for what it's going to be like, and then they pushed hard through the end, which was really good.
Has there ever been a more veteran move than Ryan Lomberg timing childbirth to the day one?
That is truly a veteran move, which we would chirp him heavily about, except he's an incredibly fit guy, and I think we'll get our fitness results from our testing back here very soon. But he wants the title. So if there's going to be a guy miss a day at camp, Ryan's got a green light, and we're happy for him. I don't know if we release that. I don't know. I'll find out if we do. I want to be respectful of players' privacy in that, but I'll find out. We do recognize the player who overall tests the highest, but I'm not sure that we're going to release that until I find out if a player wants that out.
It's never been done here, so they've never
mentioned
it.
No, I mean, yeah, if you guys have been around the room, there's always placards in everybody's room. They address that, but it's still the usual suspects. The most fit men are because they can be. I mean, they push themselves that hard. So he's looking for the title.
You spoke often in April, May, and June about those 4 days in September and what they did as far as planting the seed. And does that need to be repeated this year, or do guys now know that there is a payoff for the work that happens now?
You would like to believe there is a value in experience, but we absolutely did not come in with the idea that we have learned something and that we now own it. The reinvestment has to be made. It has to be at least as hard this year as it was last year. We should have increased our capacity to endure, and that was a theme of that camp. And we should be a more fit team, and sometimes that's just mentally more fit, that you can push yourself through. So we will have these first 5 days of camp, because we finish with a doubleheader, that all our available veteran players will play in. We won't sit anybody out because it's a hard day.
What's it like for you being back? I mean, at 9 o'clock on the dot, you're out there and ready to get going?
It's a different experience. I mean, we had so many things going on, and then even in your personal life, the move, getting your house painted, getting moved in, and then you're trying to start the process of developing a relationship with probably 50 people. We've got 59 players at camp. The ease for me is that I know now 90% of the players on the ice I've had some experience with, and sometimes that's just watching them play. So there's fewer introductions that happen on the ice when you're skating around and shaking somebody's hand because it's the first time you met them. So there's things that are easier, but what it does, it affords you an opportunity to do more, push more, define your teaching. So we will do very similar things from last year's camp, but we do have a much higher expectation. And you can. We can do the drills faster now. You don't have to stop as much. So we can go just as hard or harder in a slightly shorter period of time, but we still went as long last year as we did this year as we did last year.
You talked about last year that, and it was an ongoing thing, that the guys hadn't gotten all the way there until they did. Now guys know your systems. Does that make this not camp physically easier, but mentally easier going into the season when everybody knows what the story is because they did it the last couple months of that last season?
It's a good idea, George, but I also think there's a big danger in believing that when I come to camp, or that we've got this thing figured out. We have lots of room to improve on a systematic basis, just the instinct reads that take so much time to learn. And then to ever think capturing that would somehow make this easier. That will be a mentality that I will fight hard. This will not be easier. We do have some challenges with injuries going into our camp, but if this was something that you could experience, capture, and keep, one team would have won the Stanley Cup for the last 30 years. Right? It'd be the same thing. This is something that you have to reinvest in and you have to recapture. And this thing has to be hard and we have to endure it. We have to go through it. And we have to face our adversity. What you're hoping for is mentally, when we get to the hard parts, the first 5 days of camp, whatever adversity we face in the year, we have in our memory bank a belief that we can do it in the core, so that you cement that belief. It doesn't make it easier. You still have to go through it and it has to be hard, but you have a belief that you can do it.
How did you process over the last 90 days the joy of getting there, the disappointment of not winning it, everything that group went through in year one, the physical toll, the mental toll it had to take on everybody you included? How did you sift through it all over the last 3 weeks?
Well, I just cried for a couple of weeks. Then turned the page. It was a brilliant year. And it's not about, I'm talking about almost professionally, kind of the experience of working with these guys. For me, it was an incredibly enjoyable experience. So then, instead of thinking about the highs and the lows and the excitement, it was just to ask the question, but why? What is it about this group of guys that made that room the way it was? And asking those questions about the why, and then being determined to protect that, to fight for that culture that we have in the room. But don't get lazy with it and think that it's guaranteed to be in your room this year. We have to fight for the culture of hard and that togetherness they have. It starts with them all working hard at the end of practice when nobody wants to, right? And they push each other. And we have to invest in it. I guess that would be the word, that we have to reinvest in that year. That idea it was wonderful and it was there. But there wasn't any luck involved to it. We paid a huge price. And when we're going to get into adversity this year, and I'm going to at some point cut off the last year questions. I get it. I'll answer them now for sure. But we got to go back through it. To get to where we need to get to, we got to go back through that adversity again. And the idea that adversity comes, well, it shouldn't, because you should have learned this last year, so this should be easy. That's what I'm fighting. And I'll end up, it's human nature, I will fight you on it too. And you probably won't be wrong in asking me the question. But the idea is, when you drop 3 out of 4, well, what the hell's going on? You guys went to the Stanley Cup final last year. Why? Because that's hockey, and that's the NHL, and that's the hard part. And every team has to walk through that gate every year. Sometimes you have a little bit of success. You don't feel like walking through that gate because it's hard.
One of the new guys who said they're really excited about that hard work and things like today is Evan Rodriguez. How much does he already fit what you guys are already doing? It seems like his play style just already matches with you guys really well.
When we do a lot of work at checking into players, and we know that, and you can see through the first day that he was able to get through that, so we know he's a very fit man. So the hard work is something that got him into the NHL. And he's a little bit like a number of our players. He did have to kind of scratch and claw a little bit to get established, and then he's also played with some very high-end players, so he has that ability too. So we can move him in all 3 positions up and down the lineup, and he can complement and drive at times lines with very skilled players on it.
You touched on injury, Bertia, Ekblad, Montour. Obviously, we know
Right.
them for the start. We saw them on the ice in between the 2 sets. Just what are they able to do? And then, secondly, just the blue line. Just how are you going to be evaluating and trying to figure out how you're going to be constructing that to start the
So both are upper body injuries. They can skate now. If they're on the ice, that means the restrictions or the fear that they would fall and cause a re-injury are gone. The window is December, we hope, and that's the 1st to the 31st. I'm not sure where it falls. That's what we're hopeful for. And they may not both be back at the same time, but that window hasn't changed. So, and we would not expect that window to open up very much earlier. These are pretty hard line on these injuries and the treatments they went through. The back end is in some ways wide open. There are clearly players that have played in the NHL a long time that are going to be here, but really what we'll try to find is the complementary pieces. How do they fit? So exhibition games are important for these guys, and even some of the veteran players. It's not really about can you play in the league, are you going to make the team? It's who do we play you with? So you will see a lot of different combinations, and you will see probably veteran defensemen. I mean, other than Gustav Forsling, you'll see a lot of these guys play a lot of exhibition games.
We'll talk about We talk about building from last year, not talking about.
No, that's fine. We can talk about it, because that's what I've thought about all summer, right?
When the season starts, right, you're trying to build off what you guys did in the playoffs with, the checking and the support and just the effort all out. So when we get to opening night and get into the first weeks of the season, are you hoping to see similarly to what you saw when when everything was clicking in the playoffs?
Well, I'm gonna say that would be the idea. But if you go back and look at those playoff games, we didn't dominate those teams. Right? It was scratch and claw, and there were nights early in the Boston series, in the middle of the, maybe one or two of those games in the Toronto series, and possibly 3 of the 4 games in the Carolina series where analytically or statistically they had the advantage on us. So we were in an underdog role at that point in time. And that's absolutely the things that we're mindful of. Well, we should just go in the first 3 games, play our game, we're gonna win. And that's what we'll be fighting all year. We've gotta, as we like to say, we gotta be the first team in the mud and be happy to be there. And we've gotta get ready for that for day one.
It helps though knowing what.
Last one.
I'm sorry?
Oh, go ahead, Colby.
Yeah.
We saw Carter Verhaeghe leave in
Yeah.
the middle of practice. Is that injury related? And
Yeah,
what's his
so he
status?
tightened up on the ice and I kicked him off. So we got a very low threshold for somebody when, in terms of what we will ask a player to endure in training camp, especially a player like Carter. So these guys will come out and they'll get a back spasm, or one of their groins will tighten up. Well, they get off the ice as fast as they can. So I haven't seen medical, but it wasn't that an injury happened. He just got tight on the ice. We could feel something tighten up, so we just asked him to leave. Now, we will keep him up. He may be back out tomorrow with no issues, but we will keep all of these players who have injuries off as long as we need to get them to 100%. And for some of these guys, even guys that are trying to make the team, the guys that I can play with this, that's fine, but you've got 10 months to play with this, not 2 weeks to make the team. So those injuries do affect some players. It keeps them out of the NHL lineup to start the year, but we will be very, very cautious with any player who has an injury right now.
And good to have Hornquist working with the injured guys.
It's
Again,
great to have them. We kind of got off the ice the first group and we thought it was good. They worked hard, but when they have Hornquist off one group and then Lomberg off the other group from training camp, there's a lot less chirping going on right now. So we're gonna have to find we may just bring Horny down to the bench and have him chirp guys. That'd be good.
Thank you guys.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks so much.